I walked up to the counter and asked the clerk if there was any message for me. He checked the box for number 305, pulled out a piece of paper, and handed it to me. While I was reading it, two men who had been sitting in the lobby when I entered stood up and walked toward me. I read the note. The note asked me to call Detective Howard Miller and included a phone number. Two men approached, one on each side of me, and the one on my right asked, "Are you Frank Thomas?" "Yes," I said, "I'm Detective Larson, and the gentleman to your left is Detective Phillips." "Yes, and what can I do for you?" "This is a note in your hand from Detective Miller of the Branson Police Department. It's from Detective Miller, but I have no idea who he is. Apparently, he called and left this message just after 10 o'clock in the morning, and when you didn't call back, he called us and asked if we would find you. Can we ask where you've been all day? What's the matter exactly? Could you just answer the question?" From 8 to 9 o'clock, I had breakfast here in the hotel restaurant with a couple of acquaintances. From 9 to noon, I attended a seminar here in one of the hotel conference rooms. From noon to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I had lunch with some of the people I had met during the seminar. From 1 to 4:30, I attended the afternoon session. From 4:30 to 6 o'clock, there was a cocktail hour after the seminar. From 6 to 7:15 or so, it was dinner in the hotel restaurant, and from 7:15 to 5 minutes ago, it was drinks in the Boom Boom Lounge. Now it's my turn. What does all of this mean? I think it would be best if you talk to Detective Miller about this last question. Where were you last night from midnight to 4 o'clock? I was sleeping in my bed. Can anyone confirm this? Why do I need someone to confirm that I was sleeping? You need to get this from Detective Miller. I looked from Larson to Phillips and then went to the phone. I asked the operator to pay for the call to my number and then called the number listed in the note to Detective Miller. Apparently, it was a cell phone because, despite the late hour, the third call was answered. "Hello? Detective Miller." "Yes, my name is Frank Thomas. You asked to contact you." "Oh, yes, Mr. Thomas. It's difficult to contact you. I was in meetings most of the day. I received your message just now. I have two local police officers with me now, and they ask me questions, but they don't tell me what's going on. I'm very sorry to tell you, Mr. Thomas, but your wife has died." "How? What?" "She was fine when I talked to her last night." "What time was it?" "About 6 o'clock." "Where did you call her from?" "From your hotel room." "Somewhere between midnight and 4 o'clock in the morning. She was killed." "Killed?" "Yes, sir. It looks like someone broke into your house and killed her." "Oh my God. Any idea who did this? Was this a robbery gone wrong? Anything stolen like TVs, furniture, or something like that?" "I can't talk about this on the phone, Mr. Thomas. We will discuss the details when you return home. I'll try to take the first morning flight. Can I please speak to the officers?" "Certainly." I handed the phone to Larson. "I'll be upstairs in my room, packing my things. I need to call the airlines and leave some messages for the people running the seminar on the way home." I thought about Melissa. We met at a cocktail party, and I fell head over heels in love with her, a fiery redhead with a face that lit up the room when she smiled and a body made for sin. She was with someone, and since there were quite a few people at the party that I wanted to deal with, I had to play it cool. I waited until I found her alone and, making sure that no one was looking, I handed her a piece of paper with my name and phone number and a short message, "Call me." She called me the next day and asked why I assumed she would call. "No risk, no gain," I said, and the British military has a motto that fits this situation: "Who dares wins." How can I miss the chance to meet someone so confident? She gave me her address, and I picked her up at 6 o'clock in the evening for dinner. She had the whole package: appearance, wit, charm, and intelligence. On our third date, she told me that we would be having dinner at home, and I just needed to bring the wine. When dinner was over and the bottle of wine was empty, she took my hand and said, "I hope you're not planning on leaving early. We need to see if we have a future together." She took me into her bedroom, and we started having sex. The woman was insatiable, but I must have done everything right because, in the morning, after another intense fuss, she said, "You can handle it." 9 months later, we got married. My thoughts were interrupted by the announcement: "Please place seatbacks and tray tables in an upright position as we prepared to land." I called ahead to let Miller know what flight I would be on and when it was expected to arrive. He and his partner, Detective Paulson, were waiting for me when I got off the plane. After the show, he asked me to accompany them to the station, and I told him that I would take my car out of the garage and either follow them or meet them at the police station. He said that they would really prefer that I go with them, and I would really prefer not to. I'm here. My car is here, and there's no point in driving downtown with you and then turning around and coming back here to get my car. So if you don't arrest me, I'll take my car. One might wonder why you haven't been very cooperative, Mr. Thomas. No one in my position would be surprised. How about shortening the dance a little? My wife was murdered, and we both know I'm a suspect, even though I was almost 400 miles away and can prove it. We both know that the officers you spoke to last night checked everything I told them before they called you. We both know that you didn't tell me anything about what happened to my wife when we talked last night. All you said was that we'll talk about it when I get back here. Now you want me to just go away and leave my car here. This tells me that you don't think I'll need it anymore, which tells me that you've pretty much decided that I'm your guy and you expect to see me behind bars before the end of the day. So, my car can just stand here and you expect me to cooperate? Collaboration is a two-way street. He looked at me and then nodded his head. I think we're starting off on the wrong foot. He looked around and then pointed to one of the many food places scattered throughout the terminal and said, "Let's sit at the table and drink coffee, and I'll bring you up to date." As we sat down for coffee, Miller said, "At about 9:10 yesterday morning, your wife's friend, one Mary Osborne, arrived to pick up your wife for a prearranged shopping trip. When no one answered the phone, she tried the door and found that it was open. She called for your wife, but no one answered her. She checked and saw that your wife's car was still in the garage, so thinking that your wife may have overslept, she went upstairs and found your wife dead on the bedroom floor. She called 911, but according to the coroner, your wife had been dead for at least 4 hours by the time she was found. You said that she was killed. She was shot twice. Why do I have the feeling that you are not telling me everything? Because it's not like that. There is a procedure to be followed in such cases. A formal interview must take place at the station and will be recorded. I've already told you more than I should have. Go get your car and meet us at the police station. Should I take a lawyer with me? It depends on you. You, of course, have the right to do this. As a police officer, I must admit that I do not want you to exercise this right. Lawyers have a habit of constantly interrupting, and this makes the interrogation difficult, and a smooth interrogation in itself can tell the investigator something. So, will they interrogate me? Of course. It is you who said it yourself. Until you are cleared, you are a person of interest in the investigation into your wife's death. We finished our coffee, and I got on the bus to pick up my car at the police station. I was led into a room where Miller and Paulson joined me. They warned me that the interrogation was being recorded and asked if I wanted a lawyer present. I told them no. They asked me where I was that evening, and I told them the same thing I told the detectives at the hotel. Then Paulson asked me, "Do you have a gun?" Some about. "Do you have a .22 caliber?" No, mostly Colt .45 caliber and Glock .40 caliber, mostly. I may have a couple of .357 magnums, but I'm not sure. In fact, they do not belong to me, but to my company, Security Service Paladin. Do you own Paladin? Yes. He thought for a couple of seconds and then asked, "Do you know Robert Turner?" I've never seen him, but I know who he is. What do you know about him? Well, I'm not entirely aware of this, but last week he was my wife's current lover. You know that? Yes, I think it was around early April when she contacted him. Perhaps you should hire a lawyer, Mr. Thomas. For what? Because you just admitted that you knew Robert Turner was your wife's lover, and Robert Turner was found dead in the bedroom with your wife, and you just suggested that I, being an insulted husband, killed them both in a fit of jealousy. This is absurd. If I was going to kill anyone in a fit of rage, it would be Ronald Porter. He was the first person she cheated on me with. There were at least 4 more after Porter, and I never touched a single hair on their heads. Are you saying this? I have private detective reports about them, and you didn't do anything to them. I saw the look on Paulson's face. The caption read, "You pathetic bastard. What kind of person are you?" I thought to myself, "Screw you," and responded to Miller, "Have you ever gotten divorced or know someone who has?" No, and I know several. How did they get out of the divorce? Not very good. I'm afraid that was my problem. I did a good job for myself. My house is worth a little over 3 million, and the business I worked my ass off to build is worth between 10 and 12 million. This is a no-fault state. So even if Melissa is caught cheating, she gets half of everything. I would have to sell the house and business, give half to Melissa, and then end up paying court costs and attorney fees and probably end up paying child support to the ex-wife for a year. And yet, it is a motive, perhaps, but it wouldn't make sense for me to kill her and risk going to jail when I get rid of her for free in 9 months. Like this, she would go into the trust fund when she was 30, and that was only 9 months away. It's somewhere around 7 million. Then we would have equal assets, and I could divorce this shrew and keep everything. In fact, the fact that she was killed now deprives me of a windfall. If she had waited until she was 30 to die, I would have inherited everything after her, and now all this money will go to a bunch of charities. I should have lived with her for another 9 months. You never told me, how did she die? 2 shots to the forehead. Turner received the same thing, 2 bullets in the forehead. Double blow to the head. Reminds me of anything? Should it have? You checked Turner's wife. She has an ironclad alibi. No wonder she would have done so. Have you checked on her family? Her family? Her father is Vito Genoves, and if half of what you've heard about him is true, he'll have no problem finding someone to help him solve the problem posed to him by his beloved daughter. Family honor and all that nonsense. Isn't a double hit to the head a sign of a mafia-style hit? Miller and Paulson looked at each other, and I saw the wheels turning. Miller looked at me and asked, "Can you confirm what you say?" "I have private detective reports on her lovers, and I can give you the name of her lawyer. I believe you can get the trust fund information from him. The part about Genov is in the private investigator report I got on Turner. Did your wife know that you knew about her activities?" "I don't think so. I behaved with her like an ignorant husband. She was damn good in bed, and she never turned me down. And I wasn't going to go without sex until she was 30, and I wasn't going to play outside of marriage and give her a chance to catch me and divorce me. I don't think we have any more questions at this time, but please keep us informed of your whereabouts in case we need to talk to you again." As they lowered Melissa's coffin into the pit, I looked around at the assembled mourners and wondered if any of them had any idea what had happened. When I graduated from college at age 20, I wasn't ready to settle down yet. I wanted to do something exciting, take risks, and enjoy life before settling into a 9-to-5 life spent with a June Cleaver-type wife, a house with a picket fence, and 2 or 3 children. Clinton was sending troops into Bosnia, and there was going to be some unrest there, so I joined the army. I hadn't even completed basic training. During the 3rd week of basic class, some of the clowns in my platoon decided they needed to teach the college boys some manners and threw me a party. I was in the shower when it happened, with a blanket on me and several guys holding me. I was supposed to be helpless when they started hitting me with socks filled with bars of soap. I've never done martial arts, and I don't even know why I did what I did. It was probably something I saw in a movie and subconsciously remembered. I swung my leg. I didn't kick but swung it hard from right to left and knocked the legs out from under one of the guys. He fell, hit his head on the floor of the shower, and one of the others said, "Oh my God, he's bleeding." One of the guys let me go to lean over and check on the guy on the floor. This loosened the grip on me, and another kick caught the other guy who fell to the floor. Suddenly, the guys holding me weren't enough, and I pulled away from the ones who were and crawled out from under the blanket. 2 men were lying on the floor, and a third was leaning over them. The 2 who were standing looked at me with looks that said, "Wow, this is not how it was supposed to happen." I grabbed one of them by the arm and threw him face first into the shower wall, and he fell. The other guy started to back away, while the guy on his knees started to get up. Deciding that I would rather see him fall than rise, I kneed him in the face and saw blood gushing from his broken nose. As he began to fall, I kicked him hard in the ribs with the heel of my foot. I walked towards the guy who was still standing, but he turned and ran. The first guy I pulled out from under him didn't move, but the second one did. So I fell on his back, grabbed his head, and smashed it on the floor. By then, the platoon sergeants were already there. Sergeant Marks saw a blanket and socks filled with soap and immediately knew what was happening. I tried to walk past him, and he asked me where I was going. "There's another bastard, and I'm going to catch him." "No, not now." I tried to walk past him, and he said, "Stop it, Thomas. I don't know how you did it, but it won't be so easy with me. Now just wait there while I figure it out." Everything was settled, and I was under arrest on the second day of my stay there. I was called into the room where the captain was sitting at the table. On the way from my cell to the room, the policeman accompanying me told me that I was to enter, stop, 6 feet in front of the desk, salute, and say, "Private Thomas reports as ordered," and hold the salute until he returns. I stopped in front of the table and said, "I'm Private Thomas. Have you forgotten anything?" "I don't think so. What you forgot was the fireworks." "I didn't forget the fireworks or the sir. Both are signs of respect, and I have no respect for people who treat me the way they treat me, just because I was defending myself. You put 4 people in the infirmary. Doesn't that bother you at all?" "The only thing that worries me is that Sergeant Marks didn't let me catch up with the 5th one. What needs to be done for you to start saying sir? You have to earn my respect." This began my long association with Lieutenant Captain Major Colonel Jones Smith, or whatever his real name and rank was. Apparently, my take no prisoners attitude was something that interested a certain portion of the United States Army. I was taken out of the basic course and sent to an undisclosed location, where I received training that very few other recruits had received. I learned to use weapons, 9 sticks and stones. I learned how to pick locks in cars, create false identities, fly small planes, pilot small boats, and much more. And then I was released. The oath I took when I enlisted was to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But foreign troops were never included. You would be amazed how many internal enemies America has, and our way of defending against them was to eliminate them. Accidental drowning, falling downstairs, and broken necks. Car accidents are some of the ways to deal with these problems. Doing this kind of work tends to make you paranoid. You begin to ask yourself, what will happen to me if the surgery goes wrong? What if they need a scapegoat? What if something happened and the best solution was for me to disappear, or for my body to be found with incriminating documents or something like that? Considering what they forced you to do, you just knew that if your elimination was required, they wouldn't even hesitate. During my 6 years in the group, I hid money, guns, and identification in half a dozen places. If anything ever hits the fan and I need to bail out, I had some bolt holes. I never needed them, but I had them. When I was fired, I started a security business. In short, my company provides security specialists who are both GS and armed security guards for various companies. I had been away for a year when I met Melissa at a cocktail party, dated her, and then asked her to marry me. We had what I thought was a good marriage. We had been married for just over a year when I woke up one morning, looked at Melissa sleeping next to me, and knew without a doubt that she was cheating on me. I've never seen or heard anything to make me think that. I just woke up one morning, looked at her, and understood. Of course, that wasn't enough to confront her, so I hired a private investigator. Within a week, I had the goods on Melissa and one Ronald Porter. With this information in hand, I had to decide what to do. Actually, I knew what to do. The trick was to do it and get away with it. At home, Melissa was loving and affectionate, and she never refused me in the bedroom. In fact, at least half the time, Melissa was the instigator. I had no idea why she cheated, but I didn't even want to know. All I knew was that the marriage would continue as long as I made plans. Over the next few weeks, I checked on Melissa periodically, and she had at least 4 other lovers. It could be more, but if so, they occurred during periods when I did not check on her. I waited until the time was right. While I was in the military, I learned to fly, but it was due to operational requirements, and I never had a passion or even liking for it. It was just something I had to do sometimes as part of the operation. When I left the service, I never expected to fly again, except as a commercial airline passenger, using one of the fake IDs I had stashed while I was in the military and some of the money I had stashed. I bought a Cessna 172, a Honda Accord, and a Harley from one of my weapon caches. I selected a .22 pistol with a silencer and waited for the right opportunity. This happened when I received a detective's report about Robert Turner and who his father-in-law was. I was always invited to seminars and exhibitions, and when I was invited to a seminar on industrial safety, I agreed. At the end of the program on Monday, I stopped for a drink and then went back to my room. I called Melissa and told her where I was staying, told her I loved her and missed her, and she told me the same thing. I chose my hotel because it was one of the few in the area that did not have CCTV cameras covering the hallways and stairwells. Once in my room, I changed into jeans, tennis shoes, a sweatshirt, and a windbreaker. I put on a baseball cap, a fake mustache, and clear glasses. I walked down the stairs and out the side door, then walked 6 blocks and hailed a taxi. It took me across town to a lonely bar. Once the taxi was out of sight, I walked 2 blocks to the motel where I had parked the Honda Accord. I drove to the airfield where I had a Cessna parked, filed a flight plan, and then took off. Once airborne, I closed my flight plan and headed home. The flight lasted just over 3 hours, and after I landed and turned off the Cessna, I boarded a pre-prepared Harley and headed toward my home. I parked 2 blocks away, walked home, and quietly entered the house. I moved to my home office, grabbed my bag that was in my closet, and opened it. I pulled out a pair of latex gloves and a pair of boots and put them on. I took the stun gun out of my bag and double-checked that it was fully charged. Everything was ready, so I quietly walked up the stairs to the bedroom and discovered that I had received a bonus. I expected only Melissa to be there, but from the sounds coming from the room, I could tell she wasn't alone. As I walked quietly down the hallway, I heard my wife asking her partner to be stronger, faster, and begging her partner to finish what she started. I walked into the bedroom and immediately recognized the man having sex with my wife as her last lover, which was the icing on the cake for me. Melissa saw me. Her face turned pale, and she screamed. Turner turned around and saw me just as I shot him with the stun gun. He fell to the floor and flopped, and I quickly went to the bed, grabbed Melissa, and put a gag in her mouth. I handcuffed her to the bed and then hit Turner over the head with the butt of the gun, knocking him out. I went downstairs, took a sharp knife from the knife block on the kitchen table, and went back upstairs. I smiled at Melissa and said, "It's very nice of you to invite your sex buddy. I expected to find you here alone. How stupid of me." I turned Turner onto his back and waited for him to come to his senses while I talked to Melissa. "Did you have a good time, wife? Is Turner better than Porter? Why did you leave Porter? Was it because Hathaway was better? But then, if it was always because you were looking for the best, it would follow that Prince was better than Hathaway, Davidson was better than Porter. Damn girl, this kind of humiliates me a little, doesn't it?" Melissa was crying and trying to free herself from the bed as I spoke, and finally, Turner began to move. I looked at Melissa and said, "If Turner is so much better than the rest, it must be because you really like his manly instrument, and who am I to deprive you of what you want?" I leaned over, took Turner's male organ in my left hand, and looking him straight in the eyes, said, "It's not okay to have sex with someone else's wife, especially in his house and on his bed." And then I cut off his manhood and held it in front of Melissa's face while Turner screamed and thrashed around the bedroom floor. "Here it is, Melissa. It's all yours to have and keep forever." I pulled the gag out of her mouth, and before she could close it, I shoved Turner's male instrument as deep into her mouth as possible. Then, I pushed the gag back into place so she couldn't spit it out. I picked up a pistol with a silencer, put it to Turner's forehead, and said, "I hope she was worth it, idiot," and I put 2 bullets into him. I turned to Melissa and asked, "I guess I'll never know why you stabbed me in the back with all those idiots, because I'm not going to take out what's in your mouth so you can talk. I just hope that all the good times you had were worth the price you have to pay. It's truly a shame, Melissa. I really loved you." I pointed the gun at her forehead, and her eyes got really big before I pulled the trigger and closed them forever. I pulled out the gag and uncuffed her. I put everything in my bag and left the house. 4 hours later, I returned to my hotel room, and the clock on my bedside table read 5:15. I slept for 2 hours and then got up, had breakfast, and went to the seminar. I watched the coffin being lowered into the ground and went over everything in my head. I was pretty sure I had everything under control. A check of my Army record would show that I spent all my time in the commissary, working in the supply depots. There was nothing there that could arouse any interest. My lack of an alibi should serve as an alibi of sorts, since if I had committed this dirty deed, I would have been expected to make sure I was covered up. I'll wait a couple of weeks and then take a business trip, and while I'm at it, I'll use my fake ID to sell Cessnas and Accord. I left the Harley where it had a damn good chance of being stolen and couldn't be traced back to me, anyway. As I stepped forward and dropped a single red rose on Melissa's coffin, I thought that all I had to do now was act normal and wait and watch.